talk about the Boondocks. I've been talking about several pieces of media that kind of tells very important messages that people really need to understand, and the Boondocks in particular was very important to understand if you're black especially, but there's plenty of lessons there for everybody really in American society. So if you really want to understand what's going on with black people in America, the Boondocks had basically a one-stop shop when it comes to that. So now, one thing that many of you might not understand about the Boondocks is that within the plot of the Boondocks, there exists a 5 archetype type of deal going on that basically tells you every type of black man in the world, pretty much like how they respond to racism and how they respond to their life in America. So there's 5 types and they're each represented by a character each. So there's 5 characters specifically that are very, very key to the Boondocks. Now, the characters are, of course, the main characters, Huey Freeman, Riley Freeman, and Robert Freeman, the old man. But also, along with them, there's Uncle Ruckus. I'm sure you guys know him. And there's Tom, that black lawyer guy. He's also part of it too. So these are the 5 characters that represent the 5 important archetypes you need to understand for the Boondocks, pretty much. And so, now the reason why this is important is because, well, let me describe this to you. So, Huey Freeman represents the archetype of the black man who sees the problem of white supremacy accurately. He's in it for the fight, for the long haul. He's a soldier. He's a fighter. He playing no games. He ain't taking no shit. He's got a permanent scowl on his face because he demands justice in a world that denies it to him. Huey Freeman, he's a true black man. He's a true black nationalist type of guy. Okay, he's down for the cause. He ain't no coon. He ain't no sellout. Huey Freeman. That's the first type of archetype that you see in black men in the real world too. Now, for myself, I'm a Huey Freeman. And I'll explain something to you in a little bit here, because I used to not be Huey Freeman. It was only as of this year, once I started to accurately realize what white people really and truly think of black people in America, how the situation really is in America. Because you see, ever since Trump got elected in 2025, a lot of these racist motherfuckers came out here, they got emboldened, and they said plenty of shit, and they did plenty of shit that kind of just let me know, you know what? This bullshit that they say, oh, it's your attitude, it's how black people behave, it's because you do this. No, that's some bullshit. They literally don't like you because you're black. That's what it is. Once I realized that, and that is what it is, by the way, in case you're one of these black dudes that's in denial about this, they hate you because you're black. These people are not very intelligent. But once I realized that, I became Huey Freeman. Oh yeah. I ain't playing no more fucking games with white people. I don't give a fuck. Really low key, I'm starting to become a little bit of a black nationalist and a little bit of a racist. Call it what you will, but you ain't gonna fucking destroy me without a fucking fight. And that's just the simple fact of the matter. But I've become Huey Freeman in recent years, in recent times. The second archetype, though, is his brother, Riley Freeman. The younger one with the cornrows. He's very influenced by media. He parrots a lot of messages that he doesn't understand the meaning of. It's parroting of phrases that are divorced from their origins. He knows the struggle only insofar as that is told to him through media. And by the way, most of that media, rap music, movies, blacktainment, BET, thuggery, that type of shit, most of that shit has been tailor-made and spoon-fed to young black men like Riley. But Riley, he's a very spirited young man, obviously. He wants to do things. He's got high energy. He's positive for the most part, but he falls in line with following this media that gets pumped out there for the black youth, and he goes down the wrong path because he just doesn't understand really and truly what's going on here. He doesn't understand. It becomes braggadocious, self-serving, meaningless garbage, pretty much. because these guys don't understand the meaning behind these phrases and these songs that they sing, you know? But Riley is also endemic of what happens to a lot of black youth too. So a lot of young black men that get swept up into thug culture and they go out here and bust caps on each other and shit like that. Yeah, those guys are basically Riley. And Riley is the second archetype of the black man in America. Now, the third archetype is Uncle Ruckus. Uncle Ruckus, he's a black man who basically is like the most racist. He's more racist than a white guy. Like, by far. Uncle Ruckus is what happens when a system of hatred has been constructed and is permeated so deeply into somebody's soul that it has now conquered that soul and now pushes outward against the very people that are really on his side, like his friends and family and people who look like him. He's become hateful of the people who look like him and himself. Extreme self-loathing. So Uncle Ruckus is another archetype of the black man. And so he's twisted and distorted beyond recognition. And that you see this in his physical appearance, how he has the one big eye and the one closed eye. And he's a fat, balding fuck. He's just frankly disgusting. That is the distortion, the extreme decay of a man that has been ruined by a hateful system. Uncle Ruckus, that hatred has penetrated his soul and has corrupted him into something that is just grotesque. And you see this, and I will even say this too. I used to be Uncle Ruckus. Now, not fully. I was also a little bit of the next archetype I'm going to speak about, but half of me was Uncle Ruckus because I just kind of let a lot of the bad stuff that black folks do kind of get to me a little bit too much, you know? And black people do a lot of bad things, but once you get to a higher level of understanding about the situation, it's like, okay, well, black people do a lot of shit, but at the end of the day, we live under a system that is fundamentally against us. And so, given that information and given the breakdown of our families and shit like this too, what do you expect? Okay? I kind of have that understanding about it now. But somebody who doesn't really put the time and effort into understanding the situation like most white people don't do, for instance, okay? Yeah, that's why a lot of them are racist. Yeah, those types of people who don't put that kind of rigor in to understand it are going to have views like Uncle Ruckus. And if you're a black guy that also didn't even put the effort into understanding your own people and your own culture, you're going to be Uncle Ruckus, or at least partially him like I was. So Uncle Ruckus is the third archetype of a black man that gets portrayed in the Boondocks. Now, the fourth type of black man is Tom, the lawyer guy, the black lawyer guy in Boondocks. He's straight-laced, he's well-dressed, he's got a high-paying job, he's got the wife, the kid, the good house, the nice neighborhood. He's a high-achieving black man who's really kind of elevated in spite of a system that hates us. Oh yeah, that's the fourth type. He bought the dream of pretty much if you do X, Y, and Z that you're going to get the luxury of escaping racism and getting a slice of the American dream. And he does have a good slice of the American dream, but it's built on a fragile foundation because it ignores the fact, and going this route ignores the fact that, well, you still are a black man and you still exist in this system that fundamentally hates you. And so you, unlike a white man in the same position, have to walk on eggshells in order to maintain this really what it amounts to is a facade at the end of the day. But this is the other archetype that I also used to be myself. Now, this is what I mean when I said I was partially Uncle Ruckus. I was partially Uncle Ruckus, but I was also partially Tom. So about 50-50, 50% Uncle Ruckus, 50% Tom. So, that's more or less how I was prior to 2025 when I started seeing a lot of these white motherfuckers saying and doing the things that they're doing now as of this year. I was halfway Tom. I was halfway Uncle Ruck. But The problem with being Tom, obviously, is that, well, it's kind of a lie. Like I said in the beginning of this video, it's not about your attitude. It's not about how you behave. It's really not. Really, at the root of it, it's just that you're black. That's the root of it. That's why Tom has to walk on eggshells to maintain his life. That's why you cannot just overachieve your way out of racism. And so that's the fourth archetype of the black man that you see in the Boondocks and in real life. Now, the fifth type of black man is kind of similar to the fourth type, but not exactly. The fifth type is represented by Robert Freeman, which is Huey and Riley's grandfather. And Robert is a bit more nuanced, and I feel like a lot of black men fit into this category in particular, but he's basically, he might have fought for the cause and been more of a Huey in the past. He might have actually did some things in the past, but after years of being grinded down by the system and just frankly growing tired of having to fight for, liberation, pretty much, like he's tired. He's over it. He's just, go along to get along pretty much at this stage, So he's been worn down. He's kind of surrendered in some ways, not fully, because you do see Robert will still stand up to Uncle Ruckus, for instance. So he's definitely not Uncle Ruckus, but he's also not Tom in the sense that he's completely lost his edge about him because maybe he used to. But either way, he's been grinded down by the system, so he recognizes that conformity is better than resistance. And so he just does that for the sake of maintaining his own comfort and his own peace. And that is feasible for a lot of black men, and that's what a lot of black men end up doing. They end up becoming Robert Freeman. And that is an archetype represented in the Boondocks and represented in a lot of black men in the real world. But each of these archetypes were portrayed in the Boondocks. And so if you didn't understand this about the Boondocks, I want you to rewatch episodes of the Boondocks with this archetype, with these 5 archetypes in mind. And you can also apply this in the real world too, to black men that you know in your life or black men that you meet. They're largely going to fall under one of these 5 archetypes, or maybe you can even mix some of them. Like I said, I used to be a little bit of Uncle Ruckus and Tom, but after witnessing the truth of the matter that white people hate you because you're black, not because of how you act, I became Huey Freeman. So, maybe I was always a little bit of him in the first place, but I was a little bit naive about racism prior to this year too. I think I might have always been him to some extent, so maybe it's more accurate to say I was third Huey, a third Uncle Ruckus, and a third Tom. But let me know down in the comment section, which of these archetypes do you fall under? And does this give you a fresh perspective about the messaging in the Boondocks? Because I'm telling you, if you didn't understand this about the show, you really were missing out on a good bit of context for, the messaging that gets pushed out. And it is very profound, honestly, man, I could make several videos talking about, various episodes of the Boondocks and what it was trying to tell you and this and that, that's one of the most important shows in my opinion if you really want to understand a lot of the issues going on in regards to black people in America. So, that's just a little thing I wanted to share with you in this video. And I think with that being said, I'll go ahead and end it here. Please like, share, and subscribe. This has been Emperor Dion the Lion, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.